In between two tall mountains, there's a place they call Lonesome. Don't see why they call it lonesome. I'm never lonesome when I go there. See that bird sitting on my windowsill? Well, he's saying whippoorwill all the night through. See that brook running by my kitchen door? Well, it couldn't talk no more if it was you. Up that tree there's sort of a squirrel thing. Sounds just like we did when we were quarreling. In the yard I keep a pig or two. They drop in for dinner like you used to do.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm back for a little feature, something I hadn't planned on, but I'm going to do based on the music I've been playing lately here in February of 2025. Now, January has just flown by. I've been super busy with things, trying to keep up. Thanks everyone for tuning into the live stream last week. Some streams to come and announce, but it's been actually a tough January and February, but in a way blazing by. As I said, just busy with the band stuff happening, the album release, but also just some personal difficulties in here. Won't get into it too much, but doing okay. Just been some bit of a couple bad news type things around. People passing away. But, the news, we can't get too wrapped up in that, and so we've been retreating inward a little bit and listening to music that feels right for that. This is a bit of a folk feature, and it's all about the quieted women of folk music over the 60s, 70s, 50s in some cases. But we're listening to an instrumental folk record called Sailor's Dream by Scott Witte, or Witte, W-I-T-T-E. This is a private press. I'm trying to play some music that might not be copyrighted. So this is a pretty nice album. Pretty nice. Not one of the better, or one of the best sort of private primitive Americana releases, but a nice one. One of the tracks is featured on the Numero Group comp too. Primary purposes of this video is to talk about Connie Converse. Now, I'm sure someone or some of you have mentioned her, perhaps, but this is a release that came out in 2014 on the Squirrel Thing label. And who is Connie Converse? And that's what we'll talk about. She was born in New Hampshire and was essentially a woman who got into writing folk music, writing her own songs. She was very interesting. She really was way ahead of her time, certainly kind of an outsider before there were outsiders. She kind of came of age in the 40s and 50s. In the 1950s, she moved to New York City to try her hand at becoming a songwriter and writing and recording music. And she did just that with a guy named Gene Deitch, who discovered her and recorded her in his house in Hudson-on-Hastings, upstate New York. And I guess she was there from the mid-40s until around 1960. And she recorded all these tapes of music of her own songs, and they're just beautiful. Would never come out at the time. She never really made much of herself in New York. And she left. She left New York and went to Michigan, where I believe her family, she was living with family. And that's there where she really sort of started blazing this trail of being an enigmatic character. She did a lot of writing. She didn't really talk about all the music that she made because it never came out. It was a failure. In some ways, she didn't want to talk about it. But Connie Converse, she left a big mark on her aunt and her brother. Her sister and her brother, I think, is who she was living with in Michigan. and she had a nephew who she took care of, and there's a documentary film about her where you have interviews with some of these people done by the guys who ran this label, Squirrel thing. And why is this so interesting? How sad, how lonely? Well, she was an incredible songwriter. Her songs were kind of melancholic but beautiful, very poetic songs. Her voice is wonderful. And the recordings never came out. She talked briefly about them, but most of her family just thought of her as sort of a bit of just a weirdo. And she was not married, she didn't have kids. And in the mid-70s, she started writing about how she was going to leave and how she was going. And in 1974, that's what she did. She left Michigan, and without any trace, she was never seen from again. In the letters that they have, they talk about in the documentary, they think maybe she was committing suicide, but her body has never been found, never was. After she left town in 1974, it was never heard from in any way, shape, or form. However, these recordings were done with this guy, Gene Deitch, and they were discovered by a few people. I won't get into it. It's in the documentary, and it's in these liner notes. I think it was Bill Bernal or Dave Garland's WNYC show, Spinning on Air. A song was featured on his show, and that kind of launched a bit of a second life for Connie Converse. And the producers, or the two founders of this label, Squirrel Thing, heard that show and asked about more music, and sure enough, they contacted this guy, Gene Deitch, who recorded her in the 50s, and this is the album that we have. Now, unfortunately, this album is out of print, and if you look up what this is going for, I was shocked, okay? This was a new release that I bought here in Ithaca for $20, and NPR has done a story on her. Several tastemakers, I think there was a tribute album to her. It's resulted in a frenzy to get this record. This is now an expensive record, and it's nothing special. It's a beautiful cover, but, you know, but the music is what's important on here. I still have the original hype sticker. Elizabeth Connie Converse disappeared in 1974, leaving behind a haunting body of recordings that would remain virtually unheard for the next 35 years. Recorded in 1954 and 56. Now on vinyl for the first time, Squirrel Thing Recordings presents How Sad, How Lovely. A collection of songs that showcases a songwriter truly ahead of her time. NPR says, everything we value in singer-songwriters today, personal perspective, insight, originality, empathy, intelligence, wry humor, was abundant in her music. And this is the kind of music I've been listening to a lot of music, but this has been on my mind lately, and playing this one again. All these songs are beautiful. It's guitar and piano, I believe, all like I said in the mid 50s. Her voice is just something else, and there's such an intimacy and poetic nature to these songs. Check out the documentary. You can watch it for free on YouTube. Really interesting story. It's not a long story. There's not that much information, but they do have lots of her writings, and there's lots of photographs of her. And apparently there's more music to come out from her, you know. Just beautiful folk music, wonderful songs, haunting, but poetic and lovely. I mean, the title says it all, How Sad, How Lovely by Connie Converse. And so that got me sort of down the road, you know. I know Fred, Big Star, he likes to sort of keep going down the road of similar music. And I'll show you one of the other records that's on this label. This label has only done a few releases, and they're all out of print, and this one is also quite expensive on Squirrel Thing Records. This one actually came out before the Connie Converse in 2013. This is Molly Drake, yes, Nick Drake's mother. It's just self-titled, I believe. The missing link in the Nick Drake story by Joe Boyd said, 19 vintage home recordings of original music by the mother of Nick Drake. And yes, this is her recording around the same time as the Connie Converse. There's a bunch of liner notes about it. Here she is. And you really can hear the style and sort of chord structure and sort of her influence on Nick Drake in this music. And it's all recorded similarly in her living room. There she is on piano, Molly Drake. I just love the idea of a young Nick Drake hearing this music. There's 19 songs, and there's so many. It's very similar to the Connie Converse in fidelity and sort of intimacy of this recordings, and her voice is just, again, it just feels like it's in your room with you, but it's, 70 years old, whatever it is now. Yeah, this is a beautiful album. This is unfortunately also out of print. I don't know what the story is. This may be available digitally. Probably is. You can probably stream these. But Molly Drake's music is one of a kind. Again, you can hear Nick Drake in this music. And it's all piano, essentially. All songs were written and performed by Molly Drake. Recorded at home in Fur Lays by Rodney Drake. I guess that was Nick's dad. This was released in 2013, as I said, on the Squirrel Thing label. Squirrel Thing is a Connie Converse song, by the way. So I don't know, maybe people have talked about this at some point, but I certainly don't recall. There's a whole story about her being, what she was, she was basically someone who lived at home, was a mother. And there's a story about her and Nick in here, and she died in 1993. So she must have been quite old, and it talks about, Nick Drake dying, talking about that was such a tragedy for her. Pretty sad, actually, and it's reflected in this music, but just lovely. So these are the kind of things I've been pulling out right now, and I'm happy to have these. Molly Drake on Squirrel Thing recordings. Hopefully we'll see a reissue. And by the way, the signature song, maybe I'll have to put it in on the Molly Drake, I Remember. What a beautiful song. I can't get out of my head right now.
We tramped the open moorland in the rainy April weather, and came upon the little inn that we had found together. The landlord gave us toast and tea, and stopped to share a joke. And I remember firelight, I remember firelight, I remember firelight, and you remember smoke.
Some other records I've been playing in the same ilk. Karen Black, I talked about this a couple of years ago. It was an archival release of an actress. She was in Easy Rider, 5 Easy Pieces, and she recorded all these on her own from 1971 to 1976. Co-produced by Cass McCombs, the more modern singer-songwriter. And yeah, also haunting, a little more gravelly, a little more like a Marian Faithfull, R.I.P., in terms of her voice and delivery. But here she is. You probably recognize her. This is out on Anthology Recordings, 2021. And this has got a little bit more going on. It's not as sort of intimate and singular and just voice and guitar, voice and piano. It's called That Was All, right? Or no, Dreaming of You. That's sort of the title track, or the track that's your song on here. But this is compiled and co-produced by Cass McCombs, as I said, recordings from 1971 to 1976. If you like sort of the sound of the Connie Converse or Molly Drake, and yeah, we're talking about women on their own creating sort of DIY folk music, unintentionally DIY. They were never meant for release as is, but this is what they had. Karen Black passed away about 10 years ago, I think. So a nice one. Here's another one, another just absolutely essentially beautiful album. Sibylle Baier, Color Green. When it comes to like hushed folk music with memorable and haunting songs, again, like what I've talked about, you must have this album, Sibylle Baier. I really do want to upgrade to an original pressing on the Isoda label. This is on Orange Twin Records. It was discovered and given to Jay Mascis, I guess. Jay Mascis somehow got his hands in this, and he sort of helped get it out into the world on the Orange Twin label, which is an Athens-based label, I believe. Absolutely beautiful music. Now, she was in the Wim Wenders, a couple of Wim Wenders films. She was a German actress who also was recording these things at home in the early 70s, right around the same time as the Karen Black, but later than the other ones we talked about. This one's in print, and you can get this. It's been repressed many times. At Angry Mom, this is a bestseller. We sell this record all the time. So if you don't know this, this is a must. I think people do know this one. German songwriter who really just made these recordings, and that was it. She ended up just retiring from acting and just raised children as all of our mothers, sacrificed so much to become to raise us. And some more. I didn't listen to this one today, but I listened to it recently. The Karen Dalton, of course, she's prime in this. This is the 1966. This is all these demo recordings on the Delmore label, actually. Sorry, Unearthed recordings from 1966. The documentary about her is awesome. Oh yeah, this is the stuff with Richard Tucker, I think in Denver or Colorado. Karen Dalton didn't write her own songs. She was an interpreter of songs and a real character. Unfortunately affected by drugs and was not the best mother to her child, I think just one child. She was a struggling artist and very lovable. And man, watching her perform in that documentary is so arresting, I find. This is a beautiful album. It sort of corresponds with these other records in terms of intimacy. And her two proper records are Capitol and Just Sunshine were produced efforts, which I have and love. This is sort of her more stripped down affair, so one to check out. Maybe the mother of a lot of these artists, and all of them would have been fans of Elizabeth Cotten. This is her Folkways album, one of two Folkways records. I really do need the other one. Folksongs and Instrumentals with guitar. This is the original press. She's the sort of forerunner of this music, of direct folk music without much else going on, just direct and to the point. Great songs, This is from 58. I thought it was early 60s, but it was 1958. On the absolutely amazing Folkways label. Elizabeth Cotten, most known for writing Freight Train, which I believe is on this. Yes, it is. Going Down the Road Feeling Bad is great. Her voice was very different, we'll say. But she's certainly a big part of a lot of these other artists here. Another one that's certainly in this style, and I won't talk too much about it because it's such an iconic record and everyone knows Vashti Bunyan. It's Just Another Diamond Day. This is the reissue, and I will not sell this reissue because even though I'm selling tons of amazing reissues of amazing music, I feel like I can either replace them or I'll be okay. This one has to be in the home. 1971. Very rare original pressing. Hopefully I'll have a copy someday, like a few of you do. But when it comes to intimate folk music sung led by women, here you go. And last two, both in the series of the Numero groups, whatever the Numerophon series is, I don't quite know. But these are archival releases. One is Elyse Weinberg. She had the one album on Tetragrammaton. This is Greasepaint Smile. So other recordings. Most notably on here is the song with Neil Young on it, and it's a great one, Houses. You hear his guitar playing on it. I always thought he sung backing vocals, but and he might even be uncredited, but it's unmistakably... No, you do hear him on backing vocals on the chorus on that song. But it's unmistakably Neil. Yeah, produced by Neil Young and Neil Young's engineer David Briggs. Yeah, I think this is an archival album that really never came out. Like, she did have the one album, which I have up there. I'm not going to grab it right now, but this is a cool one. I really enjoy this one, too. This is a little more sort of produced with band arrangements and things, but I'm pretty sure you can still get this. And it's worth it for this song, Houses, alone. It's really amazing. Elyse Weinberg on the Numerophon label. Numero Group's little junior label. And then there's this, which is interesting, maybe not great. This is one of these records that every time I hear it, and I've heard this a bunch of times now, I'm like, I just miss it. It's so intimate and sparse. There's times where it sounds like the record has ended, but then she pops up and sings again. Songs for a Friend, Bruner. Obscure singer-songwriter. She is mostly known, you could barely say she's known for this. She worked with this band, another Numero Group archival release, the Pisces record. This is amazing. You can get this for like $5 to $10. This is a Rockford, Illinois psych band that never came out. There was a 45, and it's on, I think it's the Victory label, I want to say. I think it's Victory. It's a Rockford, Illinois label. But Bruner worked on this record, which is an amazing psych archival release on Numerophon Group, one of their early releases. Pisces, a lovely site. And she had this solo album, or solo recordings that Numerophon Group issued. Archival. It's only one-sided. The other side's an etching. So it's 6 songs. One of them is, well, 2. We have Don't Let Me Down, Rainy Night in Georgia, and Georgia on My Mind. She's interpreting like Karen Dalton again. These are recorded in 1970. And she did have one label, or one record out on the, the label is Vincent. Pretty collectible label. She did have 145 out officially, as did the Pisces on the Vincent label out of Illinois. This is not amazing, but an interesting piece. Not certainly worth your time, and this is like a $5 record you can get used. Check it out. I mean, I can't say it's bad. I will say it's just maybe not quite as memorable as some of these other records. But cool to have. Again, it's on the Numerophon imprint. So this one's still in the shrink with the hype here. Pitchfork called it Smoldering. It's super sparse. And definitely, you know, you're going to lose the plot a little bit on it. But it's dark, actually. Like some of this music, it's dark. 6 songs, Bruner Song for a Friend. And that's where I'll end it with this quieted folk music, with Connie Converse sort of being the lead record and the one to sort of, if you don't know that record, you can stream it, check her out. That is all. That's what I have for you today here. Thanks a lot, BC.